You were probably called gifted at some point. Maybe in school, maybe by teachers, maybe even by your family. You picked things up quickly, understood things faster than most people, and for a long time it looked like life would just work out for you. But then something strange started happening. You can understand complex ideas, analyze situations, and think deeply about things most people struggle with. Yet when it comes to starting something simple, like replying to an email or doing a basic task, you just freeze. You sit there, knowing exactly what needs to be done, sometimes even wanting to do it. And still nothing happens. It doesn't make sense. And if you've experienced this, you've probably been told the same thing over and over again. That you're lazy, that you lack discipline, or that you just need to try harder. But that explanation doesn't quite fit, does it? Because deep down, you know you're capable of much more. The truth is, this isn't about laziness at all. What's actually happening is far more specific and far more frustrating. For many people, especially those who are highly intelligent, there's a hidden issue in how the brain initiates action. And for years, intelligence can mask that problem so well that no one notices it. Not teachers, not family, not even you. Until one day, it becomes impossible to ignore. This pattern has a name: autistic inertia. And if you don't understand how it works, you can spend years fighting yourself, believing the problem is your effort, when in reality, it's something much deeper. Let's make this very clear. This isn't about avoiding difficult tasks or procrastinating on something overwhelming. And this often happens with things that are objectively simple. You know what to do. The steps are clear. There's no confusion, no lack of knowledge, no real barrier. And yet you don't start. You might open the task, look at it, think about doing it, and then nothing moves forward. That experience, where intention exists but action doesn't follow, is what we're talking about. It's not a decision. It's not a personality flaw. It's a breakdown in the brain's ability to convert intention into action. Most people rely on an automatic start signal in the brain. When it works, you don't even notice it. You just begin. But when that signal is inconsistent or weak, starting becomes a much bigger obstacle than it should be. And that's why this feels so confusing. Because from the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But internally, there's a lot going on. One of the biggest misconceptions is the idea that intelligence should automatically translate into productivity. It doesn't. Understanding something and acting on it are controlled by different systems in the brain. You can be extremely good at analyzing, reasoning, and solving problems, and still struggle with organization, planning, or simply getting started. That's why this creates such a strong internal conflict. You know you're capable. You can see the solution. You can even explain it to someone else. But when it comes to doing it yourself, there's a disconnect. And that leads to a very specific kind of frustration. The kind where you start questioning yourself. If I can think at this level, why can't I do something basic? The answer isn't about your intelligence being inconsistent. It's about a system that was never properly understood or supported. Tópico 3. O que está falhando? There are 3 key processes behind this, and when they don't work properly, things start to fall apart. The first is initiation, the ability to begin a task. For some people, this happens automatically. For others, it feels delayed or unreliable, like waiting for a signal that doesn't quite arrive. The second is working memory, holding information long enough to act on it. If this is unstable, even a small interruption can completely reset your progress. You're about to start, and suddenly you're not. The third is cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt when something changes. Instead of adjusting, the brain may treat any disruption as a full stop, making it harder to continue. Individually, each of these creates friction. Together, they create paralysis. And this is where things stop making sense from the outside, because it doesn't look like a big problem. But internally, it is. So why didn't anyone notice this earlier? Because for a long time, you didn't need to rely on these systems fully. School provides structure. Deadlines create urgency. Expectations create pressure. All of that acts as an external support system that helps compensate for what might not be working internally. And if you're intelligent, you can fill in a lot of gaps without anyone realizing. From the outside, everything looks fine. You perform well, understand quickly, and meet expectations. But that only works while the structure is there. When it disappears, which it often does in adult life, the difference becomes very noticeable. Tasks that once felt manageable suddenly feel difficult to even start. And because there's no obvious explanation, the blame often turns inward. Tópico 5. O ciclo da autoculpa. Without a clear understanding of what's happening, most people respond in the same way. They try to fix it with effort. They push themselves harder, try to be more disciplined, more organized, more consistent. But because the issue isn't effort, the result doesn't change. So the failure feels personal. And over time, that turns into self-criticism. You start to believe that you're the problem, that you're wasting your potential, that you should be able to do better. And the more intelligent you are, the more intense that pressure becomes. And because from your perspective, there's no reason for this to be happening, which makes it even harder to accept. So what actually helps? At this point, the question isn't whether you've been trying hard enough. It's whether you've been trying to solve the right problem. Because if this resonates with you, there's a good chance you've spent years blaming yourself for something that was never fully explained. And that changes how you see everything. So think about this. How many times did you call yourself lazy when something else was actually happening? If this made sense to you, share your experience in the comments. There's a good chance someone else is going through the same thing and hasn't been able to put it into words yet. And if you want to understand more about how your brain works, subscribe. Check, because this is just the beginning. Not more pressure, not more guilt, and not simply trying harder. What helps is changing how you approach the environment around you. If the internal start signal isn't reliable, you need external systems to support it. That can be something as simple as a consistent routine, a clear trigger to begin, or breaking tasks into very small starting points. The goal isn't to force yourself into action. It's to reduce the friction that prevents action from starting in the first place. Because once you begin, even in a small way, momentum starts to build. And that initial barrier, the hardest part, becomes easier to move through. This isn't about discipline. It's about understanding how your brain works and creating conditions where it can function more effectively. At this point, the question isn't whether you've been trying hard enough. It's whether you've been trying to solve the right problem. Because if this resonates with you, there's a good chance you've spent years blaming yourself for something that was never fully explained. And that changes how you see everything. So think about this. How many times did you call yourself lazy when something else was actually happening? If this made sense to you, share your experience in the comments. There's a good chance someone else is going through the same thing and hasn't been able to put it into words yet. And if you want to understand more about how your brain works, subscribe. Because this is just the beginning.